Hey everybody, John Skiba here from the Consumer Warrior YouTube channel, and this video is part 2 of my 7-part series on Chapter 7 bankruptcy. This is the ultimate guide on Chapter 7 bankruptcy that you're going to find here on the internet, and what we're going to talk about today is 3 things specifically. We're going to talk about the preparation as far as getting ready to file Chapter 7, and specifically we're going to talk about gathering the necessary documentation. The second thing we're going to talk about is the credit counseling requirement that you must complete before you can file Chapter 7, and then the third thing we're going to talk about is the overall impact that you can expect when you file bankruptcy as it relates to your credit score, and then more long-term impact of the bankruptcy filing. But if this is your first time here to my YouTube channel, please go ahead and click subscribe. Check on that little bell. That way you'll be notified each and every day when I put out new videos that help you deal with serious debt issues. All right, let's talk about the preparation for filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You know, and I can tell you this, most of the Chapter 7 bankruptcy process, it's really front-loaded. Chapter 7 takes about 4 to 5 months to process in general, but most of the heavy lifting, at least on your part, is going to be done early on. And that's because there is a huge amount of information and documents that need to be provided to your bankruptcy attorney if you're going to be able to have this done successfully. Now, I'm a bankruptcy attorney in the state of Arizona, and so what I'm going to be sharing with you is information on helping you know if, as far as the documentation that's required from an Arizona viewpoint. Although I can tell you that it's generally the same in most states because the documents that are required, that's what we use to complete the forms that are submitted to the court, and those are national. Those are generally the same everywhere you go. So let's talk about what you need to start pulling together if you're thinking about filing a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The first thing that you're going to need to do is tax returns. You're going to need at least the last 2 years of federal and state tax returns to provide to your attorney. Now, if you haven't filed tax returns, this is something you need to work on. It's not something where everything needs to be filed prior to. Different attorneys are going to have different requirements there. But it's something where if you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and you have past due tax returns that haven't been filed, your case can be dismissed and can be dismissed pretty quickly. So my recommendation, what I recommend to my clients here in the state of Arizona, is that if you are looking to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, make sure that you get your tax returns up to date. And if you have them, you're going to need to get the last 2 years of the filed returns. And it's important to know this has got to be the actual returns that were filed, not just transcripts, not just photocopies of a draft that you have somewhere, but copies that you get, if you're doing it on your own through TurboTax or whatever, you can download a copy from there. Or if you use an accountant or a CPA, get a copy of those tax returns. You're also going to need to have 6 months of bank statements for every account that you have, whether it's savings account, checking account. I even request accounts where maybe you're on an account with a minor child that you have. These documents are coming to the attorney's office to be able to review and gather information necessary to prepare the bankruptcy schedules. So you're going to need to have 6 full months of bank statements to be able to provide to your attorney. Right along those lines, you're going to need 6 months of pay stubs, or at least 6 months of income information. So if you have a regular, every 2-week paycheck kind of job, you're going to need 6 months of those pay stubs to provide to your bankruptcy attorney. This is how it's going to be determined if you qualify for a Chapter 7. In a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you have to pass what's called the means test. This is where we determine if, based upon the number of people who live in your household and your income, if you are eligible for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Something you want to check in the notes below is I work with a company called Ascend Finance. They have a really awesome Chapter 7 bankruptcy means test calculator. This helps you determine, you can plug in your information, it will give you a really good idea if you qualify for filing a Chapter 7 before you even talk to an attorney like me in your state. So check out the notes below, there'll be a link for that Ascend calculator to help you know if you pass the means test. But what if you're self-employed? If you're self-employed, we're going to need a little bit more information. Often when I work with clients, we pull information from the bank statements, but if you have profit and loss statements, those are often helpful. We're going to have to be able to look at make some determination on the income that has come into your home from your employment, as well as if there's business expenses that have been deducted for those people who are self-employed. Now, the next thing that we're going to need to know is the bills. This, it's obvious. We're going to need to know which creditors you have because we have to list those creditors in your bankruptcy documents that are filed with the court. Now, I can tell you with my office here in Arizona, for most clients, we can pull most of that data from your credit report. I have access through a program set up for bankruptcy attorneys where I can get account numbers, balances on things like credit cards, car loans, all those kinds of things. The things that we are going to need are information and documents on bills that don't typically show up on a credit report. Those are often like personal loans, medical bills, those types of things. So you need to start putting together your bills and get them organized in a way that knowing that if it's a credit card or something that normally would show up on a credit report, your bankruptcy attorney can often get that information. But if there are other types of debts out there that don't show up on your credit report, you need to get copies of those for your bankruptcy attorney so that those can be added to the schedules. This is very important because omitting a creditor from your bankruptcy filing can have long-term consequences on that creditor's ability to still come after you. So that's the first step that, as far as preparing for bankruptcy, you start gathering documents and information. You need to be prepared. This is a tedious process. The typical bankruptcy filing right now is a little over 100 pages, even for just a simple case. They require a huge amount of information, documentation, and you've got to understand that the level of precision and accuracy that's required is high. And so your attorney's going to be asking for, like I said, bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns. They might even ask for receipts and other documentation as far as how different things were spent. So it's important to be prepared for that, just mentally as you're going into it, to know that there's going to be a lot of information that's going to be requested and required of me. And the thing is, if you are filing a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you have a duty to comply. Particularly if a bankruptcy trustee requests additional documentations, you must reply. If you don't, you might put your bankruptcy discharge in jeopardy. Let's talk about the next thing, the credit counseling requirement. Before anyone can file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, they must complete an online credit counseling class. Now, this sounds like a big deal, but it's not. There are many providers. This is not something that's offered through the bankruptcy court. It's something where they're independent providers, and if you're using a bankruptcy attorney, they're going to usually have a preferred provider that they work with. And that's something that, like I already have a company that I work with, and I provide that to my clients. It takes about an hour, sometimes about an hour and a half. It's done online. It's a video that you watch, and it just gives you some general financial information. Now, a lot of people are concerned, is there a test? Is there something I have to pass? No, you don't. You just have to watch it and take the information that they're providing you. I can tell you the certificate that we received that's filed with the court just says, hey, they took it, gives us the date, the time, and then that's submitted to the court. That must be done before you can file the case. So if it's something where you have an emergency, like a foreclosure sale, wage garnishment, something like that, you need to get that done. And sometimes, we're working with clients to get that done. We have an hour to spare, and that's how long they have to take to get the class done. So there usually is a charge that the companies that offer that service charge. I've seen it anywhere on the low end from like about $15 up to about $35. So depending on the provider, there is some additional fees that are associated with that, but you have to have that. It's the ticket of admission to get into the bankruptcy court. So you got to get that credit counseling done. All right, the third thing I want to talk about in this video is the overall impact. This is something that, when I do consultations with clients here in Arizona, the biggest questions is, look, I need this bankruptcy relief, but what is this going to do to me, particularly to my credit score? It does vary because the credit score, there's all a bunch of different factors that go into it. But generally what I see is if your credit score is high, on the high end, 680, 700 plus, and then you file for bankruptcy, you're probably going to see a 100 to 150 point drop right when we file the case. However, if your credit score is already low, if it's less than 500, you may not see quite a big of a drop, but it'll still drop probably 50 to 70 points around there. Now, the thing that surprises most people is how quickly your credit score actually improves. Chapter 7 bankruptcy will stay on your credit report for 10 years. There's a public records section of your credit report. It'll show up there that you have filed a bankruptcy case. That's on there for 10 years. No matter what you see on all these other videos and things like that online, it's on there for 10 years. However, your credit score will actually improve fairly quickly. And some people will see even a significant improvement as soon as the case is discharged. Because once that discharge order comes in from the bankruptcy court, the creditors will still be listed on your credit report, but it will zero out the amounts owed, and then they'll see an improvement from there. So what I tell clients, if you're looking to buy a house, which is a big concern to people, it's usually you're looking at about 24 months, 2 years after your case is discharged by the court. There are different programs through FHA, VA. You're going to get normal interest rates again and qualify to obtain a normal mortgage through those entities. Other lenders and other programs, you're looking at about 3 years. I have had clients here in Arizona where I live who've gotten a mortgage as soon as 18 months after a Chapter 7, but it's usually 2 to 3 years after you receive your discharge order in your bankruptcy case. Now, when it comes to credit cards and car loans, one thing that kind of just blows the mind of most of my clients, you will start getting advertisements in the mail almost immediately after you file for bankruptcy, where they're offering you a credit card or they're offering you car loans. Now, the interest rates are not good. They're actually bad early on, but you may be surprised the further you get away from that filing date, the better your options are as far as being able to get that kind of lending in the future. So it's something where, often when we look at our credit reports, we're behind on credit card payments, things like that. They're hitting you every single month. That's not how bankruptcy is. Bankruptcy is one point in time, that filing date. The further you get away from that, the better you're going to be. So I don't ever sugarcoat it. There's obviously consequences to the bankruptcy filing, but when it comes to credit score in and of itself, assuming everything else being equal, you're going to recover from this much more quickly than you might be anticipating. So those are really the main preparation points I wanted to touch on today as we're heading into the third video series, which is the filing process, about what you can expect from that, what happens after the bankruptcy case is immediately filed, some of the benefits there. So make sure you check out part 3 of the 7-part series on this ultimate bankruptcy guide that's going to provide you with the information to make the best decision possible as it relates to the Chapter 7 process. If you're in the state of Arizona, even if you're not in the state of Arizona, check out my information below. I do free consultations for those who are in Arizona, and I can refer you out to partners who I work with in different states to help you with the bankruptcy process. Also check out that calculator by Ascend Finance down below. That'll help you to determine if you qualify for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy before you even talk to someone like me. Appreciate you checking in. We'll see you on the next video.